If you have a question during the class, write your question in the comments and I'll answer it at the end of the class. I also have some questions for you to practice what you've learned, and you can answer the questions in the comment section as well. Before we get started, let me remind you about our campaign, Have a Moment. We've created this hashtag for you to share a picture of when you take time during your day to learn English. Is it in the morning, before work, on your lunch break, in the evening? Send us a picture and use this hashtag, Have a Moment, on our social media networks. We want to choose our favorites and share them with you next time. So our topic today is possessives. So what exactly do we mean by possessives? We use possessives to show ownership or possession. So when something belongs to you, it is a possessive, okay? We also call this the Saxon genitive. Did you know that apostrophe started to be used in the 16th century? All right, let's start with the first kind of possessive, singular nouns. So with singular nouns, we add an apostrophe S to the end of the word. For example, Robin's car is green. This means that the car belongs to Robin. So Robin's car is green, apostrophe S. John's jacket is brown. Emily's dog is black and white. Okay, so singular nouns, add apostrophe S. Okay, what about singular compound nouns? Compound nouns are singular but made up of more than one word. Like in this example, mother-in-law is singular. It's one person, but it has 3 words with a dash in between. Okay, so with singular compound nouns, we also add an apostrophe S at the end. So let's look at this example. We celebrate Christmas at my mother-in-law's house with apostrophe S at the end of the last word, law. Okay, note that in British English, many places are possessive, so you add an apostrophe S at the end. For example, the hairdressers, the butchers, but in American English, it is not. It's simply the hairdresser and the butcher. So note this difference between British English and American English. All right, what about plural nouns? Plural nouns end in S. So it's not necessary to add an apostrophe S. We simply add an apostrophe after the S. So for example, the word kids ends in an S, so we add an apostrophe. The kids' toys are on the floor. Okay, the same with friends. I know all my friends' birthdays with an apostrophe after the S. Okay, separate possession is when if you have in one sentence different people and the possession is different. They're 2 different things, or 3 or 4, etc. So in this case, you add an apostrophe S after each noun. In this case, our subjects are Bob and Lisa. So we add an apostrophe S after both of them because we're talking about 2 different cars. So we say Bob's and Lisa's cars are very expensive. If we split the sentence into 2, we could say Bob's cars are very expensive and Lisa's cars are very expensive. So we're talking about 2 different cars, so we use an apostrophe S at the end of both nouns. Okay, on the other hand, with multiple nouns and the same possession, we only add an apostrophe S after the last noun. So in this case, Bob and Susie's house is very big. So the house belongs to both Bob and Susie. So we add an apostrophe S at the end of the last noun, which in this case is Susie. Okay, so in the second example, it's the same. Lucy and Ethan's children are very polite. The children are both Lucy's and Ethan's, so it's multiple nouns. We add an apostrophe S after the last noun. Okay, what about proper names ending in S? In this case, I've used the examples of Texas, which is a state, and Mr. Jones, which is a person's name, both ending in S. So in this case, we use a apostrophe, we add an apostrophe after the S, the same as we do with plural nouns. So in the first example, we say Texas's weather is unpredictable in the winter. So you pronounce it as if it has an S, apostrophe S, except that you don't. It's just an apostrophe. Okay, the same with Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones's cat is very old. So you pronounce the apostrophe S, but there's only an apostrophe. Okay? Let's look at irregular nouns. Some nouns are irregular, like children, people, and men. In these cases, we add an apostrophe S at the end. These are plural, but we add an apostrophe S. Okay, finally, let's look at abbreviations, single letters, and numbers. So first, you could say, do you know your ABCs? ABC is an abbreviation, so we add an apostrophe S. Okay, single letters, here I've used the example, mind your P's and Q's, which is an expression meaning to be polite. You should be polite. So after the P and the Q, we add an apostrophe S. Okay, and for numbers, for example, dates, we also add an apostrophe S. So you can say, I was born in the 1980s, apostrophe S. Okay, do not use an apostrophe to make a regular noun or proper name plural. Okay, so for example, if we're talking about a family name like Wilson, we do not add an apostrophe, we simply add an S. So the correct way to write this sentence is, the Wilsons are my neighbors, with no apostrophe. This is incorrect to add an apostrophe S at the end of a regular noun or proper name to make it plural. Okay, we do use an apostrophe with contractions. These are not possessives, but it is necessary to use an apostrophe. So for example, it is becomes it's with an apostrophe. This is important because it's with no apostrophe is possessive. It's the possessive form of it. So it's important to note the difference between the two. Okay, so we have two more examples. Do not becomes don't with an apostrophe, and would not becomes wouldn't with an apostrophe. All right, let's look at possessive adjectives. These come before a noun and must be followed by a noun. They cannot stand alone. So the possessive adjectives are my, your, his, her, its with no apostrophe, our, and their. So for example, my gloves are red. Okay? The possessive adjective comes before the noun. So my gloves. All right. On the other hand, possessive pronouns can stand alone because they are used to replace the noun. So the possessive pronouns are mine, yours, his, hers, its, ours, and theirs. Okay, so for example, this phone is mine, meaning the phone belongs to me. So this phone is mine. All right. Let's see if you remember everything that we just learned. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and I want you to write your answers in the comments section. All right, first question. I want you to write a sentence using a possessive pronoun. Do you remember what a possessive pronoun is? Try to think of an example and write it down in the comments. Number 2. Write a sentence using a possessive adjective. This is different from possessive pronouns. So try to think of an example. And number 3, write a sentence using an apostrophe.